Today's video is all about drawing from direct observation. I will be showing you how to do the contour drawing style, focusing on 3 different views of the same shoe. This is great for people who are learning how to draw an object that's right in front of them, and contour drawing is such a great way to practice hand-eye coordination. If you love learning about art, hit that subscribe button so you never miss a weekly art tutorial. So starting out, I have my shoe turned towards an angle that I think is somewhat easy, just a direct side profile view of my boot. So I'm drawing using a Micron drawing pen, and I'll link all of my materials in the description box. The good thing about contour drawing is all you need is something to draw on and one pen, marker. You could even do this with an oil pastel. So using my drawing pen, what you see me doing is focusing on the outer edges of the object I'm drawing. I put the photograph here because if the shoe wouldn't fit in the frame, and so this is a photograph of what I'm looking at in real time. Yes, you can do drawing from a photograph, but contour drawing is such a great way to practice drawing objects that are directly in front of you. Another thing you probably noticed is I'm going very, very slowly. This video is not sped up in any way. So think of your hand as copying what your eye is seeing. So as your hand moves on the paper, your eye is moving around the outer edges of the object. So it's all about line. There's no shading, and you might notice I am not picking up my pen, not a pencil. You could do this with a pencil, but you wouldn't erase. You want to keep your art material touching the paper. Now there's nothing wrong if your hand cramps up or your pen makes a weird line. Pick your pen up, stretch, and just put it back down and continue your line. Another word for contour drawing is continuous line drawing. So you can see I'm not only focusing on the outer edges, but my pen is one continuous line capturing the contours, the outer edges, the shapes that you see that make up this shoe. Every part of me wants to go fast. I get called out for doing things quickly, whether it's teaching, drawing, talking. So I really have to force myself to slow down and focus on drawing not what I think the shoe looks like, but what lines I see and outer edges that are directly in front of me. The contour style I'm doing today is not blind contour. Blind contour drawing is when you look simply at the object and you don't look at your paper. I know that seems very strange, but it's such a great way to actually focus on looking. So my advice is if you've never done this technique before, it can feel a little unnatural and overwhelming. So I would always have my students practice doing maybe 30-second blind contours of the object first, and then transition into a modified contour where you would look at the object maybe 80% of the time and then look at your paper every so often for transitional points, like if I'm doing a shoelace, but then I want to go back into the actual body of the shoe. And then this contour drawing, I am looking at my paper, I am looking at the object, not equal amounts. I'm trying to really stick to looking at the shoe mostly. Okay, so my second view of the shoe, I'm doing it straight on. I really like this because it makes the front of the shoe look really exaggerated, and I like all the detail of the laces. So I'm starting with the opening of the shoe and I'm going down in. And my advice typically when drawing is to focus on just the big shapes first and then go in and do your smaller areas. But with contour drawing, it's a little different because you want your pen to kind of travel at what you're looking at. So my roadmap might be a little different than if I were drawing this with charcoal or a pencil. I'm just trying to kind of capture the lines and travel along the shape of the shoe as I'm watching. Now, spoiler alert, my first drawing, I didn't love it. I thought the shoe looked a little cartoonish. And so practice makes better. That's the beauty of this style, is it's not really like a refined moment that you would hang up in a frame. Not that you couldn't. Some of my contour drawings are some of the favorite things I've created, but think of it as a learning experience that you might then develop a really great drawing. I would say in a sketchbook, if I do 10 contours, I might love 4 of them. Think of it as a way to really practice drawing, and you might create these great moments that you want to hang on to. So far, I'm really loving, I feel warmed up. I really feel like I'm doing a nice job capturing the actual shape of this shoe. And so I'm just trying to capture the line weight here. You can see there's like wrinkles in the leather that I want to include. And then I'm going to go into my laces, which is really fun. If you pick up your pen like you see me do, just put it right back down. It's not like you have someone standing over your shoulder saying, no, keep your pen down, unless you have an art teacher that's like really intense. So I'm just traveling up my shoe, trying to follow where the laces are. And again, I would warm up. If you have never done this style before, do a few practice sketches, maybe set a timer. And I really enjoy this style because it serves a great way to draw things to scale. And when I say to scale, I mean to draw something life-size. So instead of drawing this teeny tiny shoe in my sketchbook, I've gotten some drawing paper and I'm trying to draw the shoe the size it is in real life. I'm not measuring it. And again, you're looking at a photograph on the left-hand side of my screen, whereas I'm looking at my shoe from this angle. But if I put the shoe in the frame, you wouldn't see the whole thing, and you certainly wouldn't be able to see the angle I'm looking at because you have an aerial view of my paper. I also really like how the shoelaces are off to the side. And remember, with contour drawing, you are focusing on lines and outer edges. So it's not a technique where you're focusing on shading or value, but I do want to create line weight. And I want some of my lines to be more dominant and thicker, like the shoelaces and some of the outer edges of my shoe, to give it a little heaviness. And some of the lighter areas, like the wrinkles or a little fine stitching, I would use like a less line weight. So even though I'm not shading, I am paying attention to those details. Okay, third view here. Again, one continuous line, focusing on the outer edges, focusing on keeping my pen down, and I am looking at the object more than I'm looking at my paper. Transitional points, like this little tag hanging off the boot into the shoe itself. Yes, look at your paper, make sure it's in the right spot, but focus on what is actually in front of you and not just what you think your shoe looks like. Remember to go slow, 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 following your eye along the edges. So if you were taking your finger and outlining the object like squinting, think of that as your eye, and your hand is trying to copy what your eye is seeing. It is such a fantastic way to practice that hand-eye coordination. You've heard me say that several times. And if you're interested in more contour drawing tutorials, check out the playlist above. I love doing contour portraits. It's a great way to sit in a meeting or sit in school and draw people without them knowing it. I have a video on contour hands, contour plants. You can draw anything in this style. One great thing about drawing shoes is you can capture your personality of yourself or another person through shoes without them getting mad that it doesn't look like them. So it's a great subject because it's interesting, there's lots of detail, you can really express personality traits without having to draw a person. But this is a great technique if you're learning how to draw people, because you're focusing not on like, oh, the eye is this far apart from the other eye, but you're capturing a drawing in the moment. I think that's my favorite thing about contour drawing is it's so in the moment. It really feels like a snapshot, just a moment in time, not like a refined work of art that you spend hours and hours and hours on, but it just has this lively energy that I just find really nice. So if you were doing this, you could switch up how many shoes you do. You could do them all on the same page and do some watercolor splatter. You could do as many shoes as you would like. It doesn't have to be the same one. I just like doing 3 of the same one so that I can really get familiar with the shape. I can really get familiar with the lines. And you can see by the 3rd shoe, I really have my confidence. I'm doing an angle that's like 3/4 view, and I'm really understanding the subject matter since I've looked at it now for 3 times. I still feel like my first drawing is my weakest, and I really like the 2nd and 3rd angle of this shoe. I always have students ask me, well, how do you learn to draw? And you learn to draw by drawing. And drawing from direct observation, not from photographs, not being scared to really sit down with an object and pay attention to its details is the best way to learn how to capture something's likeness. My advice when picking a subject matter, if you're doing shoes, simple can be good, but some of the simplest shapes are the hardest because you have to kind of get it right because there's less information. I chose my Doc Marten boots because I like that they were worn in. I just love the shape of a boot. I think it's very satisfying. It's kind of got that timeless look to it. And I really do like the laces. I practiced with my Birkenstock sandals and they were okay, but I felt like I didn't have as much information. With this, it's been really fun. As you can see me kind of slowly capturing how the laces are different sizes and how they loop together. And although I'm drawing the same shoe, mixing up the angle is a great way to really capture that subject in multiple viewpoints. So I feel like I'm finishing up and wrapping up this drawing. I really do think all three of them show progress. So thank you so much for sticking around, making art with me. And if you're interested in more contour drawings, here's some of my favorite videos. If you're interested in what I'm up to in the classroom, find me on Instagram at thatartteacher_Machado.